Hey UncensNERD, Zach2Ks here with another breakdown of Loki. Bringing us into the second half of the season with a bang was episode 4 entitled The Nexus Event. Let's get into some of my thoughts and reactions, but be aware, spoilers ahead. This episode starts with the abduction of Sylvie from Asgard. We see her get taken from her home and taken to the TVA facility. Here she's processed just like Loki was in the very first episode, and we start to relate to her. She's been really removed from her whole childhood and has been spending her life on the run from the TVA. Next we see the big reveal of the Timekeeper's lair. In it we have Renslayer ready for an appointment or something with the Timekeepers. She does appear to be pretty nervous, seemingly showing that she does buy in completely to the Timekeepers', intimidation tactics that all the TVA members have to deal with. So she really believes in what they're selling. Next we see Mobius and Renslayer in a hallway having a conversation. The show does have its fair share of West Wing type conversation, the walk-in talks. I wonder if that's just because of COVID. Maybe they couldn't have as many people on set. I just noticed that throughout the show. It's usually, one-on-one scenes. It's not really a lot of ensemble shots. So I just figured that might have had something to do with it, and just a thought I had. During this particular shot, they're talking about C-20. That was the Minuteman that was abducted by Sylvie a few episodes ago, the one that actually revealed all the Timekeeper secrets to Sylvie right before Sylvie set off her traps. And we find out from Renslayer that C-20's been killed. We're then taken to the planet from the last episode where we see Loki and Sylvie essentially waiting to die. Now in this shot there's a couple of really cool things with the visuals, the planet being destroyed with these comets and asteroids, this moon crashing into it. It was really awe-inspiring, beautiful imagery. But we do also learn more from how Sylvie grew up, how she adapted running from the TVA, going from different apocalypse to different apocalypse to avoid being detected. In this, she also expresses that maybe what it means to be a Loki is to lose.
Do you think that what makes a Loki is the fact that we're destined to lose?
While Loki's consoling Sylvie, she touches his arm, which triggers a Nexus Event. The event gets picked up by the TVA, where we see, in a monitoring room, Mobius and Hunter B-15. We also start to see the blossoming of what seems to be doubt in Hunter B-15. This is going to show up later as things are going to start to unravel for the TVA. The one thing that I thought was really strange, though, about this observation room is it seems like it was a main observation room in the TVA, but why was there no panic? A couple of episodes ago, the timeline was in complete disarray. All the timelines were going all over the place. There were so many different Nexus events being caused by Sylvie and her attack. But did all that stuff get handled off camera? Did we not see it? Or maybe I just missed some dialogue that would have helped me in letting me know what was going on there. But it just seemed like they should have been a little bit more panicked, or there should be more going on. It just seemed pretty calm, like this giant timeline-changing event didn't just happen. But again, maybe I just missed something, so let me know down below in the comments if I did. But now Loki and Sylvie are in custody back at the TVA, and they're sent into different rooms and separated. Loki is taken to what appears to be the same interrogation room as the first couple of episodes, where he's subjected to a different form of torture than we've really seen. It's a memory loop torture where he's basically kicked in the nuts constantly by Lady Sif over and over and over again for cutting off her hair and being told how basically he's a terrible person. After a couple of rounds of these nut shots, Mobius comes back to Loki and brings him into the interrogation room to try and get more details out of Loki about what Sylvie's plan was, if they're working together, that type of thing. Loki does try to lie at first by telling him that he is basically responsible for all of it, and that Sylvie is just a part of the plan. The typical god of mischief stuff, but Mobius bluffs right through that, sees completely through the facade of what Loki's trying to do, and he basically lies to Loki and tells him that Sylvie's dead. They actually killed her. Now, this is really where Loki starts to realize he has feelings for Sylvie. This is when he starts to become more honest with Mobius and starts to come clean with a little bit more of the details. And he also reveals to Mobius that every TVA member is a variant. Now, we leave the scene with a cold-blooded line from Loki, like a dagger to Mobius, that really gets Mobius to start thinking. And this is where his loyalty starts coming into question, because he does start getting doubt, just like we saw in B-15, and we start seeing the TVA agents lose faith in their own operation, which is what I believe is going to start bringing down the TVA as these episodes move on. Next, we see a celebration in Renslayer's office between Mobius and herself, where they're toasting to a job well done. And here we start seeing Mobius outwardly question the TVA to Renslayer, his friend and fellow agent, And based on the answers he's getting, we are seeing the doubt come all across of Owen Wilson's face. He does not believe a single thing that's coming out of Renslayer's mouth, but she decides to try and pull the friend card, the we have history card. And of course, this seems to work, but in reality, Owen Wilson's just putting on his charms, and he's charming his way into stealing Renslayer's time device. We next see Hunter B-15 take Sylvie to Rock's cart, where she has some questions for her. Here is when Sylvie reveals to Hunter B-15 that she's actually a variant. And this is where we get a really emotional scene from Wunmi Musaku, a person who hasn't really got to stretch their acting range yet, which we know if you've seen Lovecraft Country, she's very, very, very good. So it was good to see that from her this time around, because you got to feel all of her memories coming back to her in a very reminiscent scene of Blade Runner, the whole Tears in the Rain monologue. At least that's what I thought of. But moving on, we see Mobius, this time with the device that he stole from Judge Renslayer. And on here, he's doing some digging, and he discovers that she actually lied to him, just like we were suspicious of originally. He sees that not only was she not telling the truth about Hunter C-20, she was directly involved in what was happening. We see her image in this device shut off an interview with C-20, where C-20 is revealing to everyone interviewing her that all the TVA agents are actually variants with their unique memories. They're pulled from their timeline to work for the TVA. After discovering this, Mobius decides to try to break Loki out, saying that something with their relationship, they being Loki and Sylvie, has a very important impact on the timeline and the Nexus events, like we saw earlier when Sylvie reached out and touched Loki. So he tries to break him out. Unfortunately, not long after leaving Loki's little punishment memory chamber, they do run into Renslayer again, this time with a bunch of TVA agents ready to take them in. And here is where I was pretty shocked. I did not expect Owen Wilson's character Mobius to have what happened to him happen to him. And until the end of the episode, I was a little bit bummed out. Obviously, we'll find out what happens at the end here in a second and why it kind of helped me get over it quicker. But I didn't realize over the course of 3 episodes just how attached we've got to Mobius. Because here is where it showed us. He actually gets pruned by Renslayer. Not after giving a great little moment there about jet skis like we saw earlier, but he gets pruned. He gets deleted, he gets destroyed, erased, whatever you want to call it. And at this point, I was a little bit bummed out because we grew with this guy. He's honestly really been the biggest tick for Loki's tat. He's been the only person in the MCU so far to really see through everything Loki does and continuously be, kind of a friend to him. And that was all in just really 2 episodes that he's shown up. So I was a little bit upset, but moving on from that, at this point, Loki and Sylvie are taken to the Timekeepers. While in the elevator going to the Timekeepers' chamber, we learn that Renslayer doesn't even remember the Nexus event that caused her to go after Sylvie in the first place, which definitely seemed to affect Sylvie in a not-so-great way, and that might come back later on, kind of like a Wanda to Thanos, you took everything from me and I don't even know who you are type thing. That should be interesting to see how that plays out between those 2 characters as this unfolds. But now we're taken into the Timekeepers' chamber, and we see a good look at our Timekeepers, and they have a very comic-accurate look, which I like. I didn't know too much about the Timekeepers, or a lot of the characters introduced in this show until this show, but I did a lot of research on the Timekeepers, and looking at them, and then looking at what we saw in the show, they did a really good job of making that accurate, making it true to the source material, which I always appreciate, and that's one of the things that Marvel has done well consistently through the MCU run. So I did give, kudos and brownie points for that, especially because a lot of the things that you see in the MCU are very out there because that's what the source material is. Dormammu, for instance, or Ragnarok, just very unique stylistic choices and designs for characters that are so true to the character that it doesn't feel like it's an adaptation. And that's just something that's really fresh to see in comic book genre in general. I think Marvel's always done a phenomenal job with making sure that these still look like they fit in the world that they're in, but also pay good homage to its original counterpart. So that was interesting to see. Now, we're learning about the Timekeepers. The Lokis are being brought before them for judgment and what presumably would only lead to, deletion or pruning. But it turns out that Loki's got a fighting chance because B-15 ends up showing up and setting them free and giving them a chance to fight for their lives. A fight ensues, leading to the Minutemen being incapacitated, including Judge Renslayer. and then an encounter with the Timekeepers that ends with one of them being decapitated. But realistically, we now learned they're not actually a part of this at all. They're just an android facade sent there to be a figurehead, or we're not really sure what yet. But it turns out that it's actually 3 different androids in this chamber. So are the real Timekeepers out there? Is this just protection, Queen Amidala style with, decoys? I think there's a lot more to it, and we are going to get into that in some future videos here. But who exactly is in charge if not the Timekeepers? With this realization behind us, we're left with Loki and Sylvie alone in this chamber, or alone so we think. Because during the height of a romantic tension sequence, and in another big surprise for this episode, Loki ends up getting pruned himself by Renslayer. So this really had me floored, because now I'm like, well, where are we going with the show? Is Sylvie now just the lead? What is going on? I was, don't get me wrong, I was in for it. I'm definitely going to watch it, but I was a little bit concerned and confused about what direction they were going to go in. So this happens. Sylvie then captures Renslayer and gets her in a position of trying to get her to talk, but Renslayer seems like she's not going to crack. She seems like she's pretty tough. And roll credits. Now, here I'm really confused. But all I had to do was wait a few minutes because in true Marvel fashion, we have a post-credits scene. And in this scene, we see Loki wake up in a destroyed New York looking at a bunch of different Lokis. Now, there's a couple of different theories about what this is. I personally think that when someone gets pruned, they're not actually deleted or killed from the timeline or removed or anything like that. They're actually just sent to an alternate reality, maybe a different dimension that's specific to just the people who are killed or pruned in that fashion. Because it seems like these are a bunch of different Loki variants that are all just chilling here. They were probably pruned in the past before, and they've been waiting on this dystopian dimension for something, kind of like a purgatory, if you will. But we will definitely be finding out within these next 2 episodes, because we only have 2 episodes left for the rest of the season, and I cannot wait until next Wednesday. So what about you guys? What did you think about this week's episode? I know a lot of people didn't really enjoy episode 3, thinking it was a little bit of filler. I think some of that filler was necessary to get to different emotional payoffs later on, but I understand not everyone has that view. Alright guys, that was Loki episode 4. Tell us what you thought down below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What are some of your theories about what's going on? Who's behind the TVA? You let us know in the comments, and make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, and to stay up to date with all the great nerd word, opt in to notifications. I've been Zach2Ks. Have a good day.